Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana over the past week or so. And as is the norm, we always have a packed agenda of issues to discuss. Tonight is no exception. I want to begin by welcoming all of our viewers who are joining us on television across Guyana. I also want to welcome our viewers who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown. Welcome. And I want to, most importantly, welcome the thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and as far as Australia. And I was just explaining to the Vice President that persons are joining us on this program as far as the Far East. And you thought that I was joking. But when you read the comments, you see persons are sending greetings from different parts of the world. So welcome all of you to another discussion on issues in the news. So I have some very important announcements to make. And I want to begin by informing you that this afternoon, Chief Justice Acting the Honorable Roxanne George, Senior Counsel, has rendered yet another groundbreaking ruling, this time in relation to a challenge that was filed by Troy Garraway against the appointment of Clifton Hicken to the post of Commissioner of Police after Mr. Hicken attained the age of 55 years. The contention is, or was in the case, is that a Commissioner of Police cannot be appointed to hold the position substantive if that Commissioner of Police passes the age of 55 years. It would be recalled that Mr. Hicken was appointed to act in the office long before he reached 55 years. And upon him approaching his 55th birthday, an extension of time was granted for him to continue to serve in office by President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, and the President did so in exercising certain powers conferred upon the President by an act of Parliament called the Constitutional Prescribed Matters Act. That act permits a Commissioner of Police tenure to be extended. Well, first of all, the act provides that a Commissioner of Police shall vacate office upon the attainment of 55 years of age, provided that the President may permit a Commissioner of Police to continue to act in office after consulting with the Police Service Commission to allow that Commissioner of Police to continue to act in office until he or she reaches the age of 60 years old. The challenge filed was on the basis that when they say Commissioner of Police, when the Act speaks to Commissioner of Police, the Act does not include a person acting in the office of Commissioner of Police. That is to say, the Act speaks only to a substantive holder of the office. And the argument that they advanced is that, therefore, only a substantive holder of the office can be extended. And certainly that after a person who may be acting in office passes the age 55, he can no longer be appointed Commissioner of Police. Those, in sum, were the gravamen of the submissions launched in the case by the lawyers who filed it, and that was the basis of the legal challenge. The Attorney General was sued, and subsequently Mr. Clifton Hickin himself, in his personal capacity, was later named a party upon an order of the Act. That the Constitution doesn't prohibit the President from appointing a Commissioner of Police beyond the age of 55. That's the first point that we made. No provision of the Constitution prohibits the President from appointing a Commissioner of Police after the age 55. It is this Constitutional Prescribed Matters Act that says, and this Act also does not prohibit the President from appointing a person to the office of Commissioner of Police after that person attains 55. There is no express provision to that effect. What the section says is that a police commissioner shall vacate office at age 55. There's a huge difference. But that the President has a power to extend a commissioner, to extend the tenure of a Commissioner of Police beyond age 55, but not beyond 60. So when Mr. Hickin, first of all, another important point that needs to be made is that the Constitution defines a Commissioner of Police as an officer in command of the police force, however styled. So whether he's acting, the Constitution also says that in relation to any office, whatever rules apply to the substantive holder of that office applies to anyone acting in that office. So the combination of those two constitutional definitions mean that Commissioner of Police doesn't necessarily, when they use the term Commissioner of Police, it doesn't necessarily mean a substantive holder of the office. And that is what their argument was. That when the Act speaks to a substantive Commissioner of Police, that can only mean a person holding the office substantively. The Constitution defines Commissioner of Police differently. And the Constitution further provides that anyone acting in an office has all the powers of the person who is substantively holding that office. The point being that that the Act, when it speaks to Commissioner of Police, also includes anyone acting in that office. And Mr. Hickin was acting before he reached the age 55. And prior to him attaining the age 55, he benefited from an extension of his tenure by the President. Therefore, when the Act says that he shall vacate office upon the attainment of the age 55, that doesn't apply to Hickin because he had already been extended beyond the age 65, beyond the age 55. And significantly, the president is the highest office holder in this land. He's the head of state. He's the supreme executive authority of Guyana. He's the commander of the armed forces. That is the office holder whose powers they were seeking to circumscribe. And if you're going to circumscribe a power of such a high authority, you cannot do that by implication. You have to have an express restriction on the exercise of that power, either from the Constitution or from the clear language of a statute. And when that statute does so, that statute must ensure that it doesn't collide with the Constitution. Here there was no prohibition whatsoever against the president making an appointment of a person to that office after that person has attained the age 65, 55. Their argument is, or was, that because the Constitution says a commissioner of police shall vacate the office upon attaining the age 55, that means that one cannot be appointed after age 55. That is an implication. You're drawing an inference there. And we were able to point out that it would be wrong to draw such an inference, because that provision doesn't apply to Mr. Hicken, who had received an extension of time beyond the age 55 before he reached the age. I don't know if I am clear or I'm confusing you, but those were the legal issues that arose in the case. And our submissions were upheld by the learned Chief Justice, and the learned Chief Justice ruled that the appointment of Mr. Hicken as substantive Commissioner of Police was not unlawful, and that the President did not violate the Constitution, nor did the President violate the Constitutional Prescribed Matters Act when he appointed Mr. Hicken, or converted his acting appointment to a substantive one after he passed 55 years of age. The court ordered the applicant, Troy Garraway, to pay a total of $500,000 in costs. I appeared in person along with Ms. Shoshana Lal, Loretta Noel, and Sabira Haider Ali. Mr. Hicken was represented by Mr. Douglas Mendez, Senior Counsel, and Dexter Todd and Dexter Smart represented Troy Garraway. It would be recalled that when Mr. Clifton Hicken was appointed to act in the office, that appointment was challenged by Christopher Jones in proceedings filed against the Attorney General. They lost. Then when Mr. Hicken's extension was granted by the President, they challenged that decision of the President as well. They did so in the name of Carol Joseph. They lost. Now when Mr. Hicken was appointed substantively Commissioner of Police, they challenged that decision as well in the name of Troy Garraway. and they have lost again. I remember great debate in the press when this case was first filed, and when I said publicly on this program, and my views were carried in the news, in the press, I was widely criticized by the street corner lawyers. You know, we have a lot of street corner lawyers in Guyana and on the social media. Some of them are retired senior police functionaries, and whole day they write in the newspapers about law, and none of them ever see a law school. They never went to no law school or went to any university to study law, but they know law more than most lawyers. So they have commentaries on Facebook, and they have letters in the newspapers that condemned me and say that I am incompetent and wrong, and how can a commissioner of police be appointed after he has attained the age 55? Well, I have just demonstrated how. And Mr. Todd, throughout the case, had to concede that there was no provision in the Constitution, neither was there a provision in any other law that restricts the president's powers to appoint a person to that office who was acting before and seeks an extension during that extended period beyond 55, restricting the president from making that appointment substantively. They couldn't point to any law that says that. They couldn't point to a single provision either in the Constitution or in any other law. And my understanding of law is, once something is not prohibited by law, then it is legal to do it. Any action that is not prohibited by law, it is legal to do that thing, whatever it is. And that simple commonsensical principle sometimes elude the best of lawyers. So that issue has been put to rest. And the two other challenges which they had filed against Mr. Hicken, and in both of which they lost, they never appealed. Meaning that they have accepted those decisions as correct. Let us see if they will appeal this one. Because the opposition leader likes to criticize Hicken and always says in the public domain that Mr. Hicken's appointment is illegal. Well, he sent, I suppose, his best lawyers out there, and they were unable to establish that contention to the satisfaction of the Chief Justice of the country. Another matter of some importance that I want to provide an update on is the case filed by Vishnu Bandhu challenging the electoral system. You would recall that Christopher Ram filed a case challenging the electoral system, and I have dealt at length with that case. And then Vishnu Bandhu filed a second case with a slight variation. And he also challenged the electoral system. As I have said, the Christopher Ram matter I've dealt with already, and I don't wish to revisit that. The Vishnu Bandhu matter, the arguments were slightly different from those advanced in the Christopher Ram's challenge. In the Vishnu Bandhu's challenge, the contention was, or is, that Section 11 of the 11B of the Representation of the People Act is unconstitutional insofar as it collides with Article 147 of the Constitution and Article 160 of the Constitution. So what does 11B of the Representation of the People Act say? 11B of ROPA is that section that sets out many criteria that must be satisfied by political parties before they are qualified to contest the elections. So, for example, each party shall contest in a minimum of 6 of 10 geographical constituency and shall also satisfy the criteria that a contesting party is contesting at least 13 of the 25 seats in respect of geographic constituencies. So, for the regional election, that is to say, his or her right to assemble freely, to demonstrate peacefully, and to associate with other persons, and in particular, to form or belong to political parties, trade unions, or other associations protected for the protection of his or her interest. So as it relates to political parties, this section says that you have a right to belong to political parties or to form political parties. So as it relates to political parties, and those are the rights, to form a political party or to belong to a political party. Now, firstly, these rights are conferred on the individuals, not on political parties. An individual can form a political party, and an individual has a right to belong to a political party. It's not political parties having rights. Section 11B sets out requirements for political parties. Mr. Bandu, as was pointed out in the court, has contested several elections since these laws are in place. These laws are in place over 2 decades now, and he has contested several elections over the past 25 years and never complained before. Nothing in 11B interferes with his right to form a political party because he has formed a political party. And that is what the article in the Constitution confers a right upon him in relation to. Nothing in 11B affects his right to belong to a political party because he belongs to a political party. So where is the conflict between the section, the ROPA, and the Constitution? You can only strike down ROPA or any law if it is inconsistent with the Constitution, if it collides with the Constitution. To argue that a right to form a political party or a right to belong to a political party means or can graduate or can crystallize into a right to contest elections is a completely different thing. A completely different thing. And that's where the arguments fall. Nobody interferes with Bandu's right to form a political party. Nobody interferes with his constitutional right to belong to a political party. And those rights those rights cannot be enlarged to mean that he must contest contest an election, and he must contest it in an unregulated manner, elections by itself is a statutory process. I have said that a million times. The electoral process is laid down by statute, is laid down in statute, is laid down in legislation. The legislation outlines each step, and it outlines qualifications. You can't have an election at large. You can't have an election without rules, without qualifications. All elections, any part of the democratic world, are governed by rules and regulations. And if you want to contest the elections, you must comply with those rules and regulations. If you find those rules and regulations wrong, you have to show that they conflict with your constitutional rights. Not because you can't comply with them, it means that they are wrong. Not because you think that they are too burdensome, it means that they are wrong. To show that they are illegal, you have to show that they collide with some aspect of the Constitution. And that, in my humble view, Vishnu Bandhu abysmally failed to do. The decision in both Vishnu Bandhu and Christopher Ram, because they were of similar issues, the judge decided that they will be heard together. And they were both heard by the Chief Justice. And that decision is pending, and we are told will be delivered on the 29th of July, because Vishnu Bandhu's lawyer insisted that the decision must be given before the elections. So we are going to get those decisions on the 29th of July later this month. Importantly, Mr. Bandhu was represented by Senior Counsel Roysdale Ford. And of course, it's the Attorney General who was sued. So I appeared in person. Now let's get into the politics. I have about half of an hour more. So the PPP Civic launched its campaign last Sunday at Kitty. And you saw the crowd. The crowd was approximated to be somewhere in the vicinity of 25,000. I have attended every rally at the Kitty Alexander Street area since 1997. 1992 I was not in the country, so I didn't attend that one. But from 1997, I have attended every rally of the PPP at that location. And that was by far the largest crowd ever. But what was most impressive about the crowd, apart from its size, what I believe is even more crucial about the crowd, apart from its size, was the multi-ethnic nature of its composition. From all the vantage points that I looked at the crowd from, on the stage, off the stage, in a house close to the stage, from drone shots, from video images, from still shots, I saw Guyana reflected in that crowd. I saw every race reflected in that crowd in large numbers. And that is why I am proud to say that no one can now seriously doubt that the People's Progressive Party is the only national party in this country. I can say with deep pride that this generation of political leaders of the People's Progressive Party, headed by the General Secretary, has managed to deliver a dream of Chedi and Janet Jagan. We have been able to deliver on a foundational principle of the People's Progressive Party. That is to forge national, racial, and ethnic and class unity in this country. And that crowd illustrated and demonstrated the achievement of that very noble objective. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is the energy. You could sense the energy of the people. You could sense the pride. You could see the happiness. You could see that it's people who are happy and willing to be there, to celebrate with their party. And I saw thousands of persons from other political parties who supported other political parties over the years there. I saw persons who I have never seen at political rallies there. And they were as energized as the most loyal PPP supporter. And the question that must be asked is why? The reason I would furnish is that the people have lived the successes of the PPP. They are living the transformation that is taking place in the country. They know what was promised to them in 2020. And they saw that not only were those promises delivered, but much more were delivered. They know, or they have come to realize, that this is the only party that they can trust. They have come to realize, and I'm speaking specifically about those who may have been in doubt, they have come to realize that this is the only party that has the future, that can develop the future of this country. It is the only party that they can safely rest their future with. All of that are messages that I got from when I looked at that crowd and the way that it behaved, the behavior, the energy, the enthusiasm. And then in less than 24 hours after, I saw another similar mammoth outpouring of support for the nomination day's activities. Again, it is the largest nomination day crowd ever assembled in the history of electoral politics in this country. Of course, I'm speaking about the PPP crowd, or crowd of supporters. And again, you saw the significant presence of the multi-diversity, multi-ethnic character, and multi-racial nature of our society reflected in the makeup of that crowd. Young, old, female, males. Same thing at the rally. Business people, professionals, working people, all in that crowd as they were at the rally. And they walked through sun and through rain to ensure that our lists reached to Yomanayana safely. And then the list itself, when you examine it, and it will be made public shortly, you will see again that every geographic corner of this country is represented on that list. Every class of worker is represented on that list. You have, in terms of geography, all the regions, every corner of every region in this country has representation on that list. In terms of working class and working people, you have from the professional class, you have from the rice farmers, you have the rice farmers, sugar workers, ordinary office staff, housewives, you have the business community, you have professionals, you have miners, you have teachers, public officers, you have construction workers, you name it, they were there. They are there on the list, sorry. And then in terms of gender balance, we more than satisfy the 1/3% or 1/3 female requirement on the lists. We satisfy that easily. Our list also has persons from every ethnic group in significant numbers. Moreover, the numbers, the ethnic breakdown on the list resembles the demography of Guyana. And you see that in numbers. Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, mixed race, Amerindians, Chinese, Portuguese, also every major religious groupings are on that list. So the list itself represents the list of a national party. And it has many of the persons who supported and were leaders of other parties and who have come over, and we have embraced them. They are on our lists as well. And we found space for everyone. Youth representation is there. We have experience, we have maturity, and we have older comrades and older persons as well. So in terms of age, we have diversity as well. And that is what makes our party different. We always have remained dynamic. We always have been revolutionary and evolutionary. And that's why we have changed to meet every circumstance. We have adapted to every dynamic in the society. And that is why we say that we are a party for all seasons. So now that the campaign has begun, the work will now intensify. And to supporters and party comrades who are listening, you have to keep this energy up. You have to go into the communities now, hit the ground running, house to house work, attend the community meetings, attend the rallies, talk. We have to do the work. We cannot afford to become complacent. Don't become overconfident because of the large numbers that you're seeing. Crowds at rallies and crowds at meetings, while they're very, very important, they do not win elections. So the groundwork has to be done. Elections are won on elections day and by ballots in the ballot boxes that are counted. And work is going on in every community in this country in that regard. But let me spend some time with the other political parties. Well, the APNU is nursing and limping, is nursing its wounds and is limping along. I heard Mr. Norton, as he attempts to speak with great bravado, calling how many doctors he has on his lists. And he says that someone asked him about women on the list. And he says that he has satisfied the 25% legal requirement. The video is public. Well, there is no 25% legal requirement for women. It's a 1/3, 33, and a 1/3%. So if Mr. Norton has 25% women on the list is defective. And that comes from his own admission. And one of those many doctors who he has on that list should advise him that 25% is 33 and a 1/3% if you're going to speak percentage. But the law speaks to a 1/3 women presence on the lists. Alliance for Change, I felt sorry for them. It was a very touching sight to see the few scattered yellow. I felt really, really bad for Nigel Hughes. This is a guy who came with great pomp and ceremony, great pageantry, telling the leader of the opposition that he's unelectable and wanted to come in the party and take over because he feels that he's special. Well, he has been reduced to size. He has been reduced to size. Politics is a rough thing in this country. And when you think you're coming with some kind of stature, well, the ordinary people can cut you down to nothing. And that is what we have seen there. And then we see win. Now, we know, we weren't sure, I wasn't sure that they would have been contesting the elections. Because it takes a special kind of person to contest national and regional elections of a country when you are in the peculiar circumstance in which Mr. Azruddin Mohammed and his family find themselves in. And that's why I waited to see, and it has now come to pass. I am not sure, I don't want to deny great persons. Every persons have a right to support a political party of their choice. And I, as a lawyer and as Attorney General, as a human being, I respect that right and I will advocate for its respect and for its enforcement. So whoever chooses to support Win obviously has a right to do so. But I hope that they appreciate the consequences that will flow from their support and their associations. I heard the argument that the sanctions only relate to the business. Now that is far from the truth. The sanction is personal and it relates to the business. And the sanctions are also have repercussions for relationships, for associations, and those who associate with the sanctions person, the sanctioned people, or the sanctioned organizations, can also be sanctioned. And that's clearly set out in the OFAC publications on this issue. Anyone can go and read it. I heard it also being said that only American citizens and only American businesses will be sanctioned. That is also not true. Any person who does business with a sanctioned person can be sanctioned. And it is for that simple reason that two eminent and distinguished senior counsel parted company swiftly from ANOG when ANOG decided to enter into some arrangement with Win. Those men are educated men. They understand the law. They understand how the legal system works. They understand OFAC sanctions, and they understand the implications and repercussions. And they are founding members of ANOG. There is a saying that fools often wander where wise men dare not go. I am not calling anybody fools, but I am drawing reference to that important proverb. And the other issue that one must speak to is, have these people considered the geopolitical implications and the implications to our national sovereignty and our territorial integrity and Venezuela's illegal claims and the role that the U.S. has played in lending assistance to Guyana and the implications that will flow if the U.S. is to withdraw that support, and that the U.S. will not support a government that its own government has sanctioned. And there is a, a body of evidence somewhere in the Congress that has led congressmen and women to label the leader of WIN as a puppet of Maduro. Do these people understand the implications for their own future, for this country's future, for their children's future, that will flow if this guy ever gets close to government? But most importantly, what does he have to offer anybody? I don't like to be pejorative. I don't like to personally speak critical of people. But this is a person who is putting himself up for the presidency of the country. This is a person who can affect the life of my son, the life of your son, the life of your daughter, the life of your family. This man can jeopardize these people's future and all of our future. So you have to be firm, and you have to be objective, and you have to be dispassionate and critical in your assessment. It has often been said that he cannot string two sentences together, and you saw that for yourself throughout the past 6 or 7 months, but you saw it yesterday, where when he was confronted, possibly for the first time, by a number of reporters, he couldn't assemble 2 or 3 sentences intelligently in answer to any of the questions that were being posed to him. Running a country and forming a government and going to parliament is not a show boy thing. This is not wearing sunshade and fancy clothes and throwing money around that you have never worked for. This is representing people who are putting their trust and their lives and their livelihood in your hands, and they are expecting you. I mean, they may be ignorant to think that you can do it, but still, there is a duty that you owe. And if you can't deliver, then you should not put yourself up. And this guy, and I'm speaking here with no ill will, no malice, no spite. I'm speaking here as a genuine Guyanese, because I care for what happens in this country. And those people who are following him are Guyanese. And at all times, I would want to look after their best interest, even though they don't support me politically. The other issue that I want to speak to quickly, because I'm running out of time, is the manipulation that they're using technology to perpetrate in order to show an enlarged crowd. When I saw the thing with my naked eyes, I was surprised, because I thought that this is a big crowd. And then someone who is obviously more technologically endowed than I am was able to show me the manipulation. You had repeat persons' faces all over the same crowd. I don't know what they do or how they manage to do it, but in the next couple of days, no doubt, someone much more qualified than I would be explaining it. But the thing was highly conjured up, and it was an illusion. And apparently you can do that and make a small gathering look large. And that was done. And the other thing is, the last point I want to make is this party has, I don't know if it's 1,000 or maybe several thousands of fake persons on the Facebook page, on Facebook, on social platform. I am tired blocking them. Every time, like how I'm talking about them here now, they would be like red ants on me here right now. They're crawling out. They are all kind of name. Pussycat, dog face, Gilbaka head, all kind of names they have. And they're cussing and they're vile and they're profanity and they're putting blue hearts all over. You look at this program after. Go back to this page after and scroll it and you will see how many of them. And you click on the profile and you will see that is either a locked account, it's no person, they don't have any photograph, they have a photograph of a dog or a donkey or something like that. So it's not a real profile, it's not a real person. The account is not real. But they have a couple of people, I don't know how many, in some building somewhere, who are operating that keyboard, like keyboard warriors. And they inundate you with these comments. So when you see at 40,000 likes and 5,000 comments, they are doing it themselves. But it's only one time you can vote, you know. You may have 50 fake profile. It wouldn't translate into 50 votes. It's one vote that you have. So that other illusory exercise that is being engaged in, one to deceive, to let people to create the impression that you have this large following, that will also, the truth never hides for too long. So that will also be unmasked. But as the campaign continues now, in fact, as it heats up, we will now have greater volume of information about all these things. And you will hear a lot more about the investigation and potential legal proceedings, both in Guyana and in the United States. And I hope people do not say that this is political persecution. This thing started long before. And you know that the investigations, the American ambassador said how many years they spent investigating these matters. These are not recent occurrences. Now, they are being brought into fruition. The fruits of the investigations are now taking hold, and you will see consequential actions flowing over the next couple of weeks. But anyhow, I have long gone past my program time, and I want to thank you very much for being with me over the past hour or so. Yes, I have definitely passed an hour. I know that we have shared a lot of information. I didn't get to read your comments. I didn't even get to invite you to share the program. Please share the program before you exit. Press that share button on your phone so that all your friends and all your followers can connect to the program, because the information that is being disseminated is crucial, and it is important that as far as possible that information is disseminated. Please share the program. Share it so that all your friends and family can. Don't exit the program without pressing that share button. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Enjoy the rest of the week, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.